In today's video, I've got another cassette player. I saw this one cheap and thought probably good for parts if nothing else. It's a Marantz SD283, fairly plasticky looking thing, servo control mech, which probably just means that the motor could be actually, I know it is partial load. I was going to say, is it just the motor speed is electronic, and it's made in Taiwan. It's got one of these big connectors, so it's part of a system. No way to hook up audio to it in an obvious way, but if you look behind the connector, well, it's anyone could work out that one of those is line ins and one's line out, I would assume. Shouldn't be hard to work out. I did notice these mechs have possibly a reverse date on them, like 27th of the 11th 88, 22nd of the 11th 88, which probably would be around the era of this thing if it's made in Taiwan still. It's got a couple of SHU2L motors, which may be useful if I end up just scrapping this thing, but we might as well have a look at it. Supposedly it's got some issues with it, with the decks, and I'm not sure what these mechanisms are. That's one of the reasons I just grabbed it, because I thought, well, I don't know what the decks are. They don't look like Tanishan ones, but very hard to see much of them. And yeah, it's interesting, it doesn't have any level meters on it, but it does have some LEDs there for power, monitor, Dolby, dubbing high and low speed. So I guess this thing could have been used as a dubbing deck even if you can't hear it. So if you've got it running mechanically, you could use it. It'd be a bit annoying not being able to hear anything. Whoa, that's definitely the decks resetting. I think both of them went together. That was a bit of a clunk. Possibly because the buttons have been pressed or something. We've got take up. That deck basically seems to work. The belts look alright in it. No fast forward that's slipping or something. Rewind seems to, well, was working till the auto stop kicked in. It's got plenty of torque. Fast forward, it turns a little bit. If you give it a spin, it starts. Yeah, we're starting to go. Possibly dodgy belts or something. But it's generally not the most useful deck on earth. But we do have one faulty tape deck, so I guess we'll get that one out and have a look. Be, like I say, interested to see what these mechanisms are, even though we may not have any idea what they really are. Yeah, only the cheapo doors. Did that screw just come out of that? It might have done. It came out of something. Yeah, you can't slide the front off the doors, very much like these sort of decks that are built into various stereo systems. Not the highest quality, but they were just like a basic home stereo system and had the functionality most people wanted. Screws on the ends as well, so at least it's solidly built. Assuming that we have to take the front off, but looks like one that we do. You could probably unscrew it without removing the front, but unless you get both decks off that way, let's have a look, see if this is going to come apart easily. We've got a record lever. Make sure you turn the power off on this thing, because this has got nasty live connections on the power transformer, just made for you to bump into. Some of our connections. Jeez, it's got some wiring in this thing. But I guess ideally if we can pull the whole unit apart. That's permanently attached. Don't tell me there's a connector that doesn't come out after all that, or is that just looped up in there? I'm sure they would have made these into separate. That goes there. We've got a one here we need to get, a little orange one. So I've actually used some different colour plugs, which you think they would have done that more often, but A lot of the time they didn't, and then we have to get rid of, it's just a little board with LEDs on it, I guess. So I might have saved chopping some cable ties and stuff if we hadn't pulled the whole thing to bits. Does it just unclip? Yeah, 3 clips by the look of it. And that gets rid of that, and we should be free, I think, or are we? We're just one more cable tie. And we can get rid of the main unit. So I might actually pull the deck right off. Probably more than you normally have to do. You could actually just get this plate off more than likely. But I want to have a look at this thing, see what we've got here. Because there's so many different, it's like a double metal plate with plastic on it. Capstan. It's actually in very good condition really. There goes the counterbelt, I forgot to grab that. This thing's actually got an idler in it. No idea what these mechs are. Could be from any company on earth, I guess. Yeah, it's a semi soft touch kind of design. I've got an idler there. How do we auto stop this thing? Is there something there? I guess we need to get it into the mode, but what's this lever do? Don't know. I guess the only hassle is now I can't run it and see what's slipping. But we've got I guess the primary thing is this belt from the motor to the reel. That seems, it's a little bit slippery, but no, it's not too bad. The bigger belt is slipping a bit, but it's just sliding down the motor a bit. That feels rather good. I guess the other option is to run the motor off a power supply. Of course it's a dual speed motor. Looks like quite a nicely built deck really, and it's nice and clean for once. So this probably hasn't had much use. The head looks, and there's not hardly anything on the capstan or the pinch rollers. This probably is a very low hours deck again, which is why a lot of them were cheap like this, because no one used them anyway, or used them to a minimum amount. That's being the record deck. I guess that was more likely to have been used a bit. Yeah, the other ones actually looks like it's had more use. And so we've got a eject lever that drops down. Rather than up. Yeah, I think we might have to get some. Now we've got the front of it. Shouldn't be too hard to plug. Just this deck back in. Don't need the heads. Actually, that was the orange one, so where did the red one go? So is it one of these? Oh yeah, this is the motors over here. It probably doesn't matter too much which one I plug it in at the moment, because that'll be our motor speeds, but obviously you want the right deck in the right hole. I might get rid of those, do they unplug the LEDs? That way they can't short out on anything. And that should be enough to get this thing running so we can actually observe it. It's kind of working, but it's not run on that rubber idler. I wouldn't have thought it would be. Yeah, I can just stop that by hand. What are we stopping? This is the idler assembly, so I can see it. So I wonder if I've got a broken, what's the clutch slipping maybe? No, the belt is stopping, I think. Because yeah, the outer bit's stopping. It is just that belt. God, when it's got a load on it, it's a lot slippier than what it felt. Yeah, it's bulging right up on the motor pulleys. That's all it is. Not surprising. Strange, it felt reasonably good doing it by hand. So it's got some sort of sensor somewhere on that reel, I'm guessing. Or is it on this reel? I guess it's on that reel, is the one not turning. If we keep turning that, there is something rotating in here too. There's a cam, that black cam gear near the motor. It's got a little lever wobbling side to side, so it's a similar setup to a sort of Tanischen type little oscillating mechanism, I guess. Now the good news is I think I can change this other belt, this front one here, the idler belt, very easily without having to do any disassembly at all. Maybe I'll just hook it off that thing. I think they've left enough room to just slip it between the gear there. Shame more manufacturers didn't do it like this. There's actually a gap between this white gear, which I think is part of that auto stop thing, and the brass pulley there, and we should be able to just drop that down, and it's only just squeezing through, or not quite going, but there we are. And that's the belt, very small. I know it's actually got oily stuff on it, or maybe that's the belt itself. I think it's going a bit stretchy, belt deteriorating, so we'll clean the pulleys as per usual. So it looks like a nice simple repair. At least the belts haven't gone to goo in this one. Bit of stuff coming off, that's not too bad, so I'll find what size that belt is, I guess. Might actually have a look with the Wagner ones just so we know what it is, and then I'll put just an eBay belt in there. I think it's going to be in the 30 to 40 range, I guess. That's a 40 by 1.2, and that's looking, yeah, I think that might be the one. What's the next size up? Yeah, this 43 looks to be pretty much identical in size, but I reckon this would have stretched a little bit. So I think we'll go for a 40, but we'll just, if I was going to order one, that's the size you'd get. Or if I was going to put a good belt in there because I was fixing it for someone. But this is probably never going to be used again. Poke it under there, see if I can pull it through the other side. Don't even really need to get it on that pulley yet. The main thing is to get it around that gear. I had a smaller hook somewhere. Just pull that through and get it onto the brass bit. Yeah, nice and easy this one, and wind it around there. And hopefully now, let's apply the power again. Oh yeah, no problems at all. I don't know if I can even stop that, I just can. It should slip on the clutch a bit, but that is really powering. It's got excellent torque, this one. My God. So even the clutch is not in a rush to stop running. Yeah, it's an interesting little mech. Motor's running all the time. So just give it a quick clean, and I think we've got a working deck now. I guess I better get some photos of this mech while it's out, in case I ever work out what these things actually are. But you would kind of expect fairly standard mechs by this sort of era, late 80s. Maybe I can find a manual for this online, and it might say something on a good day. Marantz is a brand I haven't looked at because I always kind of lump them in with Philips. and Philips tend to have their own plasticky mechs in their boom boxes, so they're not really worth looking up. For more generic mechs, so I'll get some photos of that, see if I can find out any info. Okay, I'll put it all back together and just clean the other deck. So I'll see if it still works. Guess I'll have the door open. That runs. Fast forward. Rewind. Pause. I guess I better check the record, and it pulls on the record switch. That one's a bit slippy on. Fast forward as well. I mean, really it should have all the belts changed in this probably. That's alright now. You could actually replace a real belt without taking these mechs out at all, now that I know how to do it. So you can just flick it off the motor in situ, take it back off that pulley, poke one back through. So that's actually a really good design. Nice and easy to do, not so easy to do the capstan. But I do wonder, looking at it, whether you couldn't just undo that screw and lift it, or maybe a couple of the others. Not undo the other, and you might even be able to lift the whole bracket up, drop it off the motor, and then just slide it across. I reckon a little plastic bit lifts up on the back, so these may be doable without pulling them to bits. I did look these things up, and I found that these mechanisms are used in a Hitachi, what was it, TRKW55 boombox as well. According to the Hitachi manual, they're a GT50 FA mechanism. And it looks like there's a couple other model Marantz's, the 285. I think the other one was, there's another deck that looks like it's very similar to this, but maybe not quite the same. Possibly an earlier version. But that's what they say the mech is. Supposedly, well, the Hitachi one came out in 1983, I think, so these are an older mech. But this one, that 88 date probably is correct, because these, I think according to Hi-Fi Engine, should have been sold between 89 and 90 or somewhere around there. So it looks like it's just a maybe more compact version, using older mechs to fit onto a system. And I guess we were getting into the CD era then, so maybe this, or maybe it was just set to a certain price, this system, so they sort of used an older style mech. But yeah, they seem to be quite a reasonable mechanism, I think, but you know, nothing super high end or anything. But that's the story with those. So possibly called a GT50 FA. I couldn't find any other information on who might have made them or anything. But the only other thing I'd try and do is work out which of these is audio in and which is audio out, because I doubt anything's going to be labelled ALC operating. What have we got? Sony A1101 Dolby chip. I was going to say Dolby chips, but it looks like there's only one. There's a TC4066 switch IC, CMOS chip, and a BA343, I think that is. Not sure what that does. And yeah, those motors are making a little bit of noise. Probably that one sounds a little more noise than it should. So we've just got output PCB, but obviously we've got earth left and right, twice. One's in, one's out. So I guess we need to play a tape and try and find the signal. If I just get my speaker test leads, plug them in auxiliary input, and connect to ground, which is this big pad, which I guess is not easy to connect to by the look of it. Is there anywhere else? I mean, that may even be ground. And we can just touch it on. Nothing. Yep, we've got music there. And music there. So that's the ones over this side. The grey wire by the look of it. And and the brown one would then be the inputs, so I guess we could just quickly solder on to those just to test it without messing the whole thing up. So rather than even bothering to use an oscilloscope or anything, you can just do it the good old cheating sort of way. Turn the amp off for a bit while I do this, because I might just use those unshielded cables just to test it. I won't bother testing record, I don't think, just really to see if these decks are playing. Okay, so rather crudely done there, just with a couple of speaker leads. Well, that seems to work. That one doesn't sound so good. Sounding better now. That head could do with a bit of clean, but it doesn't help this door is difficult to get into. No, don't think it was that. That one's maybe a little bit of wow on it, the other one sounds pretty good. But either way, it's pretty good deck by the look of it. So if you put a couple of RCA sockets on the back instead of the other random, I don't even know what you call those connectors, but they were quite common on audio equipment. Kind of a D-shaped single line. I think it's similar to the ones some Sonys and other different ones use, but quite common back in the day, I think. But yeah, it seems to play quite well. And yeah, like I say, you could actually modify one of these with a couple of RCA sockets. It'd be easy enough to drill a couple of holes in the back and just, well, actually we really need 4 of them, I guess. I've probably got one of those panel mount things somewhere. Yeah, so if you just mounted one of these sort of 4-way panel mount sockets, that'd almost fit in the hole that's already there. Jeez, it goes close. Yeah, especially if the earths don't matter if they touch the cabinet. So you could almost hack that hole out a bit bigger and screw one of these in place, and you've got a normal tape deck out of it, so it's maybe not completely junk. I was just thinking it'd be just be interesting to see what the mechs were and use it as a parts machine if nothing else. A couple of good motors, the heads are like new in it. I doubt much else in it's of particular value, but if I wanted a dubbing deck, this would actually probably make a half decent little dubbing and recording deck. And at least it's reasonably compact, although it's a bit deeper than the usual one. But anyway, that'll do for now. I've got it running again. I think this belt is starting to slip just ever so slightly, so I guess before we put it all back together, I should be able to just hook that off the brass pulley there. Except I put it back on again. Wow, when does a belt not want to fall off? That's the first. Well, that belt is sticking on. Usually you just look at it the wrong way and they'll fall off. It is a little tight there with that other plastic bit. But yeah, you can just pull that out. Again, give the pulleys a clean for... Make sure they haven't got any oily, greasy stuff on them or anything. Just give the motor a spin there. There's a bit of black muck in there. Try and get it out if possible, though some of that seems to be very well stuck on. Yeah, that's kind of eaten into the plastic a bit, I think, and we need another belt like that. And we should be able to just hook that through. But we've got to go down around the pulley a bit and pull it around that white plastic thing. That's it, nice and simple. Put it on and bingo. And there is actually another little belt down here, another little diagonal one. Comes from the caps, then that's the auto stop mech, I think. There's a little belt there in each of them. I noticed that in the exploded view of these decks. You can actually get the manual for this one online. I think Hi-Fi Engine have it. Not that you'd normally need the manual unless, like me, you're trying to work out what sort of mech it's got and stuff, but I did notice in the mechs there is a little third belt in there. Better just give that one more test. Make sure I didn't do anything silly to it. Make sure it works with the deck there, with the tape there. Yeah, it seems to fast forward solidly now. That's a bit different. So yeah, if I want, I can modify it with some RCA sockets. Might be a project for one day if I need it. At the moment, let's just go on the pile of old tape decks and I'll decide what to do. It does have a few marks and stuff, but just as a workshop one or for dubbing or even ripping stuff to computer or something, I guess you could use it for. This would be fine. And actually seems to be a decent deck. This one obviously hasn't had a lot of use. Surprisingly clean inside. Is there even, I think there's a little bit of dust in there, but nothing much. I did clean out the doors a bit with the brush while I was at it, and a couple of the front controls, but just a small layer of dust on them, nothing major. So yeah, for a few dollars that one was probably worth buying in a way. Just like I said, if nothing else, there's a couple of those SH2L motors which would, from memory, they're compatible with some of the other 80 series and stuff. I think they've all got the same mounts. I just would have to look up what speed these were again and which direction they go. I think L means it rotates to the left, which is anti-clockwise, which, yeah, looking at the front of the motor, it'll be going that way, and that's what it's doing. That's run around that way. So I don't know if they made an SHU2R, but they may well have done. So it's a counterclockwise motor, but it depends on the voltage. Well, I think the 2 was for 12. Pretty sure these were 12 volt. And it just depends, I guess, what the high and low speed is. Obviously, again, be careful, because this is a good example of a very dangerous machine as far as 240 volts. When it's live, they've got all those pins right where you're going to touch them with your hand if you're not careful. So always turn these things off at the power point, or put something over that transformer, at least this side of it. I mean, you could just put a plastic bag, a reasonably thick one I guess, over it or something, just to make it safe to work on. So they're always something to look out for, these things, but it all seems to be going. So thanks for watching.